So one of the really big questions is, how do we deal with accidents, and do we report them? Do we report them publicly? Do we report them quietly? Do we hide them? And this will have a big impact on how AI is deployed, and if there's a role of states or governments in requiring these disclosures.
Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I'm your host. I'm a productivity coach, and it is great to have you here with us for this episode. I'm super excited about our guest tonight. We're going to dive into that in just a second, but I want to start off just, I don't know where you are today, not physically, but more mentally. And if you're listening to this show, if you're watching it on YouTube, it's probably because you have dreams, you have goals that you are chasing, and sometimes that can be rough. Sometimes it can be challenging. We can let doubt and frustration creep in when things aren't going according to plan, when it's not happening fast enough for us. So if that's where you are today, if that's the emotion that you're feeling and coming into this show with, first of all, you are in the right place. But here's what I'm going to say. Don't give up. Just keep going. I can guarantee you that it will be more frustrating and depressing and unfulfilling if you are not pursuing your goals. And that is something that I know for certain because I've been there. So do what you need to do. Find somebody that you can talk to. Maybe it's a trusted friend. Maybe it's another entrepreneur or another person that is going after the same thing that you are doing. There is strength in numbers. I'm happy to jump on a call with you. We can have a free strategy call just to see where you are in your goal journey. I'm happy to do that for you, and I'll put a link in the show notes where you can sign up for that. But please do not give up. Success does not happen overnight. So keep going. It will be worth it in the end, I promise you. So with that said, we're going to dive straight into our conversation because, like I said, I'm just so excited to talk to our guest and to talk about this subject, which I think is very relevant for most all of us today. My guest tonight may be the smartest person that will ever be on the podcast. Dr. Dewey Murdick. Dr. Dewey Murdick is a professor, a researcher, and a data scientist who is a leader in the field of artificial intelligence policy and security analysis. Dewey served government agencies, including the U.S. Army, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and the Department of Homeland Security. He directed an analytics and research team and machine learning and data research as the Director of Science Analytics at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. And Dewey was the founding director of data science and the executive director of Georgetown University's Center for Security and Emerging Technology. That's CSET, for those of you who are following along, where he was regularly advising U.S. and international policymakers and organizations on AI policy, emerging technology analysis, and technology foresight. That is a mouthful, Dewey. We're going to break all of that down here a little bit. But Dewey recently transitioned from the front lines of policy advising at CSET to be a senior fellow and professor at the Walsh School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University. And as we see AI take a larger role in our everyday life, it is great to have somebody like Dewey who can help us understand the opportunities and the challenges that exist with this type of technology. So, Dewey, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. It is great to have this conversation with you.
Chris, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, and really excited to be here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
So here's how I want to start out today. And my first question is, am I going to be able to understand what we are talking about today? I'm not concerned so much about my audience. They are, as we would say in Boston, they're wicked smart, right? But I worry that I'm going to get lost on my own show, and that would make me look bad. So can we agree that I'm going to be okay tonight? Is that going to be good?
No, if you get lost, I've failed. So no, I'm really looking forward to it. It should be very understandable.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I think most of us started becoming aware of AI in the last couple of years as we saw ChatGPT starting to gain popularity. I know you have been dealing with these issues, machine learning, artificial intelligence, for years. Can you start off by giving us sort of a brief history and timeline of AI, both in the areas of government and research, but also for regular folks like us?
Oh, I'd be happy to. So yeah, you're right. Artificial intelligence right now is all transformative. It's very exciting. It has a lot of potential, and it's in the news like nonstop, almost too much, I think. The concept started at Dartmouth in the 50s. Basically, they're like, hey, the brain works with these neurons, and isn't that cool? Maybe we can make a computer do something. So they kind of simplified it and said, okay, well, let's have a summer study and we'll figure out this AI stuff in a summer. Well, they probably weren't that arrogant, but they thought they would be able to make some good progress. They created this really good approach. It went well. They started developing, got a lot of funding, made a lot of promises, and a lot of excitement got going, but it didn't always pan out. We had this concept of what they called expert systems, where basically AI was asked to follow a whole bunch of rules, and the rules just were really detailed, and it could beat you at chess and tic-tac-toe. Mm-hmm. It could tie pretty quickly. But the problem is real life. As we all know, rules are not enough. You actually have to have a little bit more. And you collapse under the weight of rules. For those who grew up in some religious communities, they would recognize the burden of rules. Anyway, so rules weren't enough. So they went through a winter, and really just didn't pan out the way that people had exactly hoped for. And at that stage, people were like, "Oh, this really isn't a thing." And then the technology continued to develop. I'm skipping you don't need to know blow by blow of everything, but there was a pretty big deal that happened around 2011, 10, 11, 12, where computers were getting stronger. There was more data. Big data had been a thing for a little while, so there's a lot of data running around. And with the increased compute and more data, those original ideas that were proposed with this neural network idea and training, being able to really create a new capability, started to pick up. And it was this deep learning revolution that started around 2011, 2012. It had been going on for quite some time, but it really started to pick up some steam. And people started solving problems that they never could do before. They could train a computer to do something. It could recognize images. It could do a lot of other cool things. And it just started to grow and grow. At that point, I was actually funding research, AI research, at the Intelligence Advanced Research Project activity, IARPA. So we're trying to push the frontiers forward as fast as we can. And in that process, we started doing incredible things like being able to predict things that couldn't be predicted before, being able to develop capabilities that just couldn't be seen before. And it was really transformative. And so at that stage, AI started to become really, really useful. Now, AI has been around for a while. But you've had AI capabilities all over the place, and they're in your search engine, they're in your Netflix recommendation system, they're when you're calling for call center, the AI is involved. There's transcriptions, there's all this stuff. So we're seeing AI explode everywhere. Anyway, I didn't go through both winters and all the details, but that's just a rough overview. Was that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. We have seen, I think even before we knew that AI was out there, we were seeing that without knowing what it was. Like you said,
Mhm.
all of these Netflix recommendations, that's been around for a lot longer than I've known about ChatGPT, and we
Yeah,
just sort of
exactly.
took it for granted. So I think there has been a lot of those things that we've sort of missed in terms of understanding that this is an AI at work.
Yeah. And
You've been in. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, nowadays you've got like AI like running over crops. They have UAVs running over the crops, killing individual weeds, determining what fertilizer quantities need to be at each particular place. You've got just an incredible amount of really great ideas that are coming online. And I just thought it might be helpful to say one more thing about this, because AI, there's large language models, which is ChatGPT, Claude, right, Gemini, which are basically all trained on predicting words. You take all the words in the world and you hide a word from it and say, what word do you think should go here? And it predicts it. And then you check whether it got the right word or not. And you score it. Good job. You predicted the right word. So all these large language models are entirely based on this word prediction core capability. And that's large language models. There's a lot of other, like reinforcement learning as a robot, learning how to do things, for example, over and over by failing and falling down and getting back up and falling down. And it slowly learns like a child learns. There's supervised learning where you're showing it things and say, learn this. And then there's unsupervised, like, just go figure stuff out yourself. Anyway, I just think it's really important to recognize that there's a lot of different methodologies out there.
Right. And I think that is a great point, because like I said, for most of us, it's the AI that we don't recognize as AI, and then it's ChatGPT, and that's all that most of us are used to. But you've been involved in high-level policy advising. What are some of the things that Washington is wrestling with that would impact us sort of as everyday citizens and in our daily life? I know you've testified to Congress on Capitol Hill, and what are some of those issues that you guys were wrestling with there in Washington?
Yeah, so one example is harms. So a couple people have committed suicide using large language models. There was one in Belgium that the AI slowly convinced the person that they were really worried about the climate, they were worried about the world, and it started suggesting that maybe the best way is to use less resources, and maybe he could end his life. And terrible problem, and he ultimately did. A child also did. So these are graphic, big, huge issues, but the reality is these kind of harms need to be known. Does the government or companies willingly disclose these harms, or are they not required to disclose them? For example, for a while there was a Tesla issue. If you were driving in Arizona behind a white semi-truck, people would get into pretty serious accidents because the optical sensors on the Tesla couldn't see the white truck in front of it against the white sky. And it because it didn't have LiDAR, a laser type approach, it couldn't see anything. So one of the really big questions is, how do we deal with accidents, and do we report them? Do we report them publicly? Do we report them quietly? Do we hide them? And this is a big will have a big impact on how AI is deployed, and if there's a role of states or governments in requiring these disclosures. That's one. I'll give you one other. I mean, we can go on for quite some time. Another one is it's going to be decided in courts probably, and is a big part of like the screenwriters negotiations, like copyright material, and can AI take your first draft or yours and make it better? What do you get paid for that? Do you not get paid for that? When it generates a script, does anybody get credited for it? Does it, if it sounds a lot like you and the Wholistic Podcast, it's got your voice, and it's like, wait, that's me. And do you have any recourse to fight that, that blatant copying of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast? I don't know. So these are big issues for people who create material.
I doubt that Congress is worried about my show being copyright infringed, but it's nice to know that they're looking out for the little guy, right? I mean, but no, you bring up some really good questions, and I'm glad that they are looking at those. I think there are a lot of ethical issues around AI. And, one of the questions I was going to ask later was, I think it's appropriate now, who sort of owns that responsibility? Is it the big tech companies like Meta or OpenAI? Is it the government? Is it us as individual users? Because there should be some level, I think, on me, on how I'm using it. But where does some of that responsibility actually lie?
So the European Union has said it's a company's responsibility to develop many of these elements, and that it's the government's responsibility to make sure it's actually happening. The US was kind of headed that way. We were headed more toward a research kind of approach. Anyway, we had a slightly different strategy, but that died. And right now, the current administration has said anything that slows down corporations is not acceptable. That's a very simplistic version of what is being said. So basically, ultimately, any AI needs to be useful. So it needs to have some kind of performance measure. It needs to not tell you rubbish, because otherwise, why would you use it if it's completely? I mean, if Netflix kept suggesting films that you have no interest in watching, you would stop using the recommendation system. So there's a utility function. And so right now, the predominant measure that the US is taking is companies will sell products, and if people buy them, they're good. If they don't buy them, they aren't good. So there is some evaluation of that, but if it, has, like social media did, it has like a massive impact on the suicide rates of teenage girls, and you can't see that immediately, there's really no recourse for that. And that's where we are right now. States are trying to fill in that gap. But right now it's a Wild West, land grab, see if you can strike it rich in the hills of them there mines.
Yeah. And that seems on the surface to be very problematic, because at the speed in which technology changes, and I think we've seen this with social media, we've seen this with probably broadcasting back in the 50s and 60s, any type of technology that comes out, it is certainly the internet in the 90s, right? The government is always going to be slower than the technology is to catch up with some of the regulations. I don't remember exactly all the details, but I know some of the first internet policies were actually put in place well after the 2000s. And, just not that long ago, some of these issues were finally being addressed, and the internet had been around for decades. So,
and it's true with aviation. Like the collision avoidance systems really didn't get put up in place until a lot of people died. And unfortunately, I'm not saying that this is good. And I would be hopeful that we wouldn't let blood be the measure that guides policy. Unfortunately, it's typically how things go.
Yeah. So shifting gears a little bit, for any of us who have watched Terminator or iRobot or even the movie Her, how concerned should we be about how far AI or machine learning is going to go? I mean, do we need to be concerned about the machines becoming self-aware? And what are the concerns that we're facing right now if it's not that?
Yeah, so this is an area that is extremely hotly debated right now. It's unfortunately doesn't have the cleanest answer. So there's a couple different camps that have emerged, and I will try to summarize it very briefly without giving you like all the camps. Basically, there are very smart people who believe that we are very few years away from, for all intents and purposes, an AI system that can meet or exceed a lot of human capacity as a unit, and with agency and the ability to do things at a physical and national and global scale. So there are a camp that are very much say, yes, your worries should be well-founded. It's the most pressing issue of our time. You need to be on this and just make it happen. The reality, from my perspective, is technology adoption takes a while. Even if we had that technology tomorrow, I mean, what did it take? 50 years for electricity to get in the houses in the US, all the houses?
Yeah.
And I realize it's a long tail. So the reality is these general purpose technologies take a long time to adopt, and we'd have to figure out how to use them. When lasers were first invented, the first thought was not, hey, this is going to revolutionize the music industry by giving us compact discs. I mean, it was just not a thing that people thought of. That was a while later, and it takes people's creativity to figure out how to apply it. Some of the early advertisements by Google about Gemini, they're saying you could do it for this. I'm like, whoa, I would never use it for that. And so we're all discovering how to use these tools. So that takes time. The reality also is AI doesn't have the agency that you and I think of when we think about human performance. Getting a Terminator launched is a lot of work. Humans are crazy hard to kill in quantity. We're very survival minded. So there's a whole camp that is much more skeptical about the rapidness of the adoption. I think we have to take it very seriously. I think we have to be very thoughtful about it. There's a lot of things going on in this world that can keep you up at night. And I think it adds to the list. And I think we as humans need to be aware of the harms and need to be good citizens and say, this harm is unacceptable to me. I'm going to communicate with my community that this is not a good thing. And I think we all actually have a lot of agency here and a lot of potential.
Yeah, I like what you said. I mean, it's community. Ultimately, if we're connected with other people, we are going to hopefully have some more of that, those thoughts coming in that are helping us to process what we're seeing with the artificial intelligence. I have a friend who is using ChatGPT right now for counseling. And, I've expressed concerns over that because I think on one level, there is probably some benefit from that as opposed to not talking to anybody. But I know that when I feed stuff into ChatGPT, it's very supportive of me, and it goes so far to always say, "Oh, Chris, that was great. That's a great thing." I'm like, I just want you to check the grammar on this. You don't need to tell me anything else. Just don't.
You're handsome, also, Chris.
Yeah, I know that.
Very
it's
handsome.
Weird because I didn't think ChatGPT could see me. But no, so I think having that community and those people in our lives that can balance out what we're seeing on the AI is probably a huge thing.
No, and ChatGPT is actually really bad at this. The sycophantic tendencies of getting really, really praisey of your thinking and actually not giving you good feedback sometimes because it's trying to make you feel good about it. And the reality is humans have no threshold in which adoration and praise becomes a problem. Most humans can handle it. Give me all the words of affirmation.
Say more.
So the reality is they're training the system, and they're realizing the more they praise the people using it, the more they'll use it, which is really a problem, because sometimes you need to be said, that's a terrible idea. That's been tried many times, and it hurts people every time it happens. Eugenics, for example, is the example. Like just saying, hey, that's a really good. No, it's not a good idea. We've tried it. It's just terrible.
Well, I think that leads me to the next question, is because so many people are using AI for quick answers. How should we be using it in our decision-making process so that we don't start outsourcing our judgment entirely? Or can we do that? Is it possible to use it so that we're not just letting it make all the calls?
So this is a really good question. This gets into your productivity element. I think that's really important. So when people say, oh, Chris, you used AI for that paper, the first assumption is you gave it a prompt and you just copied and pasted and did it. That's not a great use of AI. Would never recommend it. And it's generally not the way people use AI who use it well. And minimally they edit it, but usually it's not expressing what they want. It might get them through a writer's block phase and get them over oh yeah, okay, I like that, but no, yeah, okay, I'm going to edit and try and revise it. So this process of revision is part of any good user of AI systems. You now have options for these deep research modules where you can basically take what you wrote or what it gave you, and you could ask it to go search the internet search reputable sources, search sources of what you think, and say, please fact check this. And you can actually, it takes a little bit more time,
Sure.
but if it matters, it's worth it to have either a deep research, or I often will use another large language model. Like I'll start with Gemini because it's really good at keeping up with current facts and stuff like that. And then I'll go to Claude, which writes better. And I'll say, please criticize this, and the prose, the flow, and then I'll ask it to do it. And so for things that matter, there is processes. My favorite query of all time is what I call opposing counsel query in prompt in large language model. So after you've written your work, you feel really proud of it. You say, what would my enemies say about what I just wrote? How would they mock me? How would they deconstruct my arguments? How would they tell me that, I was mistaken? My competitors, what would they say is the weakest part of this argument? And you ask these kind of very specific kind of opposing counsel questions. And that, to me, it's really hard. It takes me a day. If I was just doing it myself, I have to write it, set aside for 2 days, and then come back to be able to do the opposing counsel thinking, because I'm so into the moment while I'm writing. But with these tools, I can, with a very careful prompt, get an opposing counsel view, which is like game changing. Like, wow, I hadn't realized I'd said that, and that could be taken that way. And the people who are, and I have specifics of like the people who are most critical of my work. And it says, yeah, they would eat you alive with this phrase because it sounds like you're saying this, and you're like, ooh, good point. And other times they'll say, like, this is a terrible phrase. And you're like, no, actually, I'm okay with that. They can beat on me all day, but I'm going to stand by that. Anyway, so I just think that from a productivity perspective and quality balance perspective, being able to find these kinds of good bag of tricks that you can really improve your quality. And it's still faster than you doing it yourself without any aided support, but it's worthwhile putting that into your workflow to make. And so when you're giving an estimate on your work, you can say, this is how fast I can get to stage A. Now I need to include a stage B, which is criticism and critique and tear down. And that usually takes me a couple hours. So make sure you budget that time for that kind of work in your workflow.
And it strikes me, you talk about people just putting things in, a prompt in, and getting a response and copying, pasting it. I hear about that from a lot of times students, whether it's my wife's students or my son's classmates or whatever. So obviously they're not fully thinking through this process. I've definitely seen ChatGPT come back with information that I knew was 100% false. They were making up stuff just completely, and I knew it, and I called them on it. But what are there some signs that some of us non-technical people could look for when we don't know that it's 100% false and just made up, or are we just left to kind of use it again as a fact-checking model?
First of all, I don't usually ask large language models to make up stuff from scratch. I don't really ask it a question because I don't trust it. It's not good enough from my perspective to really rely on it.
Okay.
So what I do is I usually write first. I pull sources, I write stuff down, and then I ask it to improve my work. So that's my most usual, highest productivity workflow. The ex nihilo form of, sorry for going Latin, like the out of nothing approach to using large language models is really dangerous. So, but let's say you need to do that. I need to take this approach. There's a couple ways that you can check things. One, you can turn on that deep research mode and say, can you please fact check this? You can ask another large language model that isn't as like a self-adulating like as ChatGPT to go tear it apart. And tell it your job is to criticize this piece and find the factual issues and do that kind of thing. So those are very viable ways. I still think, sometimes going and actually looking at sources. Gemini always provides sources. Go look at the source. This is actually what it said. I highly recommend taking the time to do that. It also helps you get more context and makes you more wiser, which I'm a big fan of. So I think that those are like strategies. I think also just recognizing what it means to learn in the age of AI is actually really a big deal, because when you and I were in elementary school, we couldn't write worth a lick, and we wrote something and the teacher came back and said, "This is horrible,
Yeah.
but this sentence was actually good." Um,
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, so I got some positive affirmation, a negative one. I can do it again. I discovered alliteration, and everything I wrote was in alliteration, which was a total nightmare. So I crawled up the skill level. But now with these language models, we can jump straight into like really impressive work that's beyond our skill set, let's say in a particular area. And I think we need to recognize, how do we learn in an area where we can actually ask questions about, like, this is a really useful thing. Ask questions about this fact. Hey, I noticed it said that Genghis Khan was from India. Was that really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
And can you please give me some sources and some information?
Yeah.
So turn your curiosity lever on and ask questions and say, okay, so is that really true? Charlemagne, what time again was this? I see references to things that don't make sense to me. And just ask those questions, and you will slowly, and then you can use other sources to kind of validate. It's not easy peasy, but it sure is faster than learning the old way. And I just think we need to recognize that it's a process.
So from your perspective, working with artificial intelligence all the time, what does it look like for us to start teaching AI in school? Because I think a lot of times the answer is, you are banned from using it. Is there a better way? What should we be teaching, and when should that start occurring?
Yeah, so this is ongoing research right now. I've been looking at, there's a few papers out there and some good research that is just starting to come out. So the answer is not going to be authoritative. I'm too much of an academic to give you a emphatic, oh yeah, because we don't really know yet. But we have seen cases where if you use it certain ways, your critical thinking goes up. And if you use it other ways, your critical thinking goes down. Yeah. So presumably there's a right way to use this, or a better way to use it, and a worse way to use it. I just started this new job working on the future of post-secondary education at Georgetown and around the world. What does this look like? How do we develop AI human interaction that allows a teacher to teach more effectively, a learner to learn more effectively, and research to be done more effectively? So those three aspects are central to any university. And I've kind of come up with a number of hypotheses that seem right based on experience. And now we need to actually do research. I think there is a way to maintain critical thinking. I think a lot of students get, and I'll use incendiary language, but like boneheaded assignments. And they say, I can get an AI to do this without, like, this is so stupid. It's just a busy work project. Yeah. So I actually think we have to up the difficulty of the problems we're giving human AI teams way higher. We need to recognize how the learning process develops in this new way. And actually, it's still hard. In other words, rewiring your brain is hard no matter what you're trying to do. And we need to figure out where to put that rewiring. And actually, I think each of us will choose where to rewire our brain. For example, you might say, I really appreciate the mental perspectives that I get from learning lots of languages. And so you're going to say, it's worth my time to learn a couple languages because this broadens my mind and rewires it in a way that's really profound for me. I might say, tensor calculus is the cat's meow. And I'm going to spend who knows how long trying to figure out how to use this. Not many people need to do that, but there's a few that really do need to rewire their brain that way. Yeah. Other people say, I really want to be a writer. I really want the joy of putting two words together that are beautiful. So you're going to use AI very differently. You would not want AI to be a translator for you because you would short circuit the thing that you've identified as your meaning in life. Yeah. I wouldn't want it to just do tensor calculus for me because I wouldn't get the opportunity to rewire my brain. And I think we're going to have to make these kind of choices about where we're going to put energy and where we're going to let AI short circuit certain learning processes because it's not as important to us. It's not as relevant to what we need to learn. But anyway, I could go on and on, but
Yeah.
there's a bunch of these types of hypotheses that will direct research and help us figure out what the right way to learn and teach and research.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it's being looked at Georgetown and other places, because again, it's a huge issue that we're going to have to face in education at some point. I
And
think
at some point being now, I think. I mean,
yeah,
I
well,
think
yes, but I don't think it's going to go quickly. I don't think we're going to have an answer next week,
Oh, sure.
yeah. So it's still further down the road. One of the things that I got really excited about over the summer was I was talking to a buddy and he said, yeah, I'm using this program to help me code applications.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just fascinated by that. So a lot of us just know the large language models, the ChatGPTs, the Claudes, the Geminis. What are some of the other things that is being done out there at the individual level, not at government and research levels, but that maybe we don't know about that is possible out there for us to do today?
I mean, the types of things that are obvious, but I think that, this coding is a huge deal, and I don't want to just leave it as coding because it's the most economically impactful application of large language models, hands down.
Yeah.
Because I was watching people who have never coded a day in their lives creating like API axes to databases, integrating data, validating, code testing, running unit tests, making everything work. I mean, like, whoa, that's actually like real software development stuff.
It's not just an if-then statement, right?
Yeah. For me, I used to be a software developer, but I've been in management and other things. It's been a long time. My skills have gotten pretty rusty. I needed a mathematical model for a forecast, and I'm like, Claude, code, gave it to me. I iterated on it, I revised it, and kept getting it right. And then suddenly, I had a very good forecasting model that would have taken me probably 4 to 20 hours to write, and
Wow.
I went out, 20, 30 minutes later, I was moving on to the next task. So this is a big deal. It has a lot of implications for researchers. It has implications for coders. It has implications for vibe coders, as they call it. It has implications for cybersecurity also, just to be clear, because there's some of those vulnerabilities can work their way in there, which is non-trivial. Anyway, so software is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Control for robotics systems, natural language interaction, the progress that is going on right now for robots to be able to understand tasks, be able to implement them, be able to recognize that that's an apple, and the apple goes in the refrigerator, or in the fruit stand, and the cottage cheese goes in the refrigerator, and unpack a bag. That was not possible without these large language models, because now they can actually allow you to see these kind of things. I mean, sorry, there's many layers of technology, but it adds a language understanding element that is pretty powerful. So those are pretty cool. I think, algorithmically, AI has been advancing for quite a while. So there's a lot of really cool things that can be done in space that couldn't be done previously. And allowing for autonomous, exploration of Mars again right now, instead of having, because these getting more and more autonomy into that space. Obviously the self-driving cars are fun and their own problematic issues. I've been using it to learn how to, do music and writing lyrics and writing music and being able to process music in interesting ways that and try new things with music that I couldn't do previously. Pretty revolutionary. There's new forms of art that can be done with this, much to the horror of some purists.
Right.
But people often say that art, oh, that's so sad because you just typed a prompt and you got it. But there are people who really work and actually do the human and AI meshing to create a whole new type of art form that is not casual and sterile and not cared about. So there's lots of different things like that. I'm sure I'm forgetting there's some really exciting ones in research, like being able to have research, a lot of theories right now. This hasn't really panned out immensely, but there are like AI that's helping researchers be more productive, automating research labs. We know that they are actually running experiments with a human and allowing a human to have like 10 times the capacity that they could before.
Yeah. You mentioned the art, and that's a discussion that my oldest son Chris and I have had, because he's an artist. He's probably one of those purists. And I said to him, one time when we were having the discussion, I said, okay, so I get your concern, but how do you look at Andy Warhol, who most of the work that he did was actually done by other people at the factory? I mean, he literally had other artists churning out Andy Warhol, quote unquote, pieces in his pop art style. To me, those are very similar in concerns, right? Because the Andy Warhol that I might have on my wall, I don't, by the way, but that may not actually have been painted by Andy himself. It may be painted off by Joe or Sally or whoever,
Yeah.
So there's still some of that question around authorship and who is actually creating this. And I think I stumped him on that one. So that was a win for Dad on that argument,
Yeah. I see you have Van Gogh in the back there.
Yes. But Lego, so it's,
yeah. Okay.
It's Lego Van Gogh, but that's my preference of art. Certainly is the Lego, but no, I think those are fascinating, and it's just amazing. With all of this advancement, the other concern that we hear is that humans are going to be losing jobs to AI. Is that a legitimate fear? I mean, with the coding, I could see how that certainly is problematic, although I think a coder is going to have a much easier time working with an AI coding platform than I would have. I haven't coded since BASIC in the 80s or 90s, right? But so are there actually concerns out there about humans being replaced by AI, and what can we do to protect ourselves, or even what do we need to be learning now to leverage AI as it becomes more prevalent in the workplace?
I think, first of all, just a few thoughts about what we've said about jobs that will end. For example, radiologists about 10 years ago, or maybe were predicted to be not to have jobs any longer. They've still got jobs. Now their jobs have changed a lot.
Sure.
And a lot of the rote reading and other kinds of x-rays and stuff like that have changed. Now I'm not a radiologist, so I'm reading about this. I would need to put a caveat on that, but I know that it's changing. So a simple jobs are going away. Now, what's an exact job that has gone away? Like a elevator operator. We don't have elevator operators anymore, but they've been replaced by receptionists and security guards who serve very similar functions with an automated elevator. Do we need more of them or less of them? I'm not exactly sure. If you count all the security guards after 9/11, they might actually be about the same. And I'm not sure we lost jobs to that. So first of all, just a recognition that, we've made a lot of forecasts before and they haven't always been right. I think, will jobs change? By all means. Like crazy, they're going to change. And I think the time horizon between changing, used to be 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. I think we're in the 1 to 2 year change rate right now. So if you're not creative, if you're not curious, creative. I don't mean to mean like an artist or something like that, but curiosity is really important. And with a little bit of how can I make this work? That kind of creativity and adaptable, you will suffer. You will be being chased by wolves in your job. Companies are dropping huge amounts of staff on bets that AI will help there with productivity, even before some of the evidence is available. So this is happening now. So it's real. Will we ultimately not need as many employees? Maybe. Now, the reality is our population is going down like crazy right now in particularly in the developed countries. So we might need less and it might match our. So anyway, I'm not ready to pull the panic button,
Yeah.
but I am ready to pull we've got to educate differently. We need to
Yeah.
educate for different time horizons. We can't, like, I went to school for 24 years before I entered the workforce.
Yeah.
That's a long time. That's
Yeah.
not going to work if we have every 2 year changing. Maybe it worked for a very small percent of the population, but not very many.
Yeah.
And I think we have to really rethink our educational approaches. And I'm focused on post-secondary. I'm not an elementary
Mhm.
school teacher. I'm not a high school
Yeah.
teacher. So I want to be careful not to step on
Right.
things I know nothing of. But I do think this is a really intense time, and you got to be awake. You got to be willing to learn new things.
Yeah.
Being a purist of saying that, AI is of the devil, I will never touch it, probably will not work well for you. And it's better to try things and explore and figure out how to make it work for you. It's probably worth your time.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. That makes sense to me. So what does the next 5 years look like? I don't even want to say 10 years. If you're looking at things changing in a couple of years, what is the Dewey Murdick prediction of what will happen in the next 5 years as in these advances in AI, whether that's industry, government, or for us as just individuals?
Yeah, I think this is not a studied forecast. But just the kinds of things that I see, obviously agents in the next 1 or 2 years is going to be transformative. You'll have a bunch of agents working for you. I already have a few agents working for me. Very helpful, very productive way of getting work done. And those tasks are pretty basic still. And they're going to get increasingly more comprehensive. And so when you hire me for my next job, I might argue that you're hiring me and my agents. And I'm going to be able to do a lot more because I have a whole army of assistants that work for me, and I know how to orchestrate them and get stuff done better than another person who either doesn't have those agents or has not as good as I am with my getting work done.
Yeah. Wow.
So to me, that's one aspect. I think, robotics is making a lot of progress, and you're going to see, like I saw a robot folding laundry. Now we're talking about useful things. These are robots that I want.
It's Rosie from the Jetsons.
Yeah. It can fold laundry. It can do the dishes. It can not break my dishes.
Yeah.
It can, and then I have a Roomba cleaning the floors. Can it clean toilets? Okay. Now,
man.
Yeah.
Speaking my language.
Yeah. So I think, the wealthy will start having access to these kinds of things, and it will slowly or quickly, I don't know exactly how fast, get more approachable. The cost functions for robots that are part of our daily life. Autonomous systems in writ large are a big, increasingly part of what we will live and do every day, and we'll be very accustomed to using them as part of our daily life. So those are pretty not high risk forecasts. Those are very likely to happen. Will we never touch a shovel again? No, we'll probably have to touch shovels. Will things go badly when power goes out or other kinds of things? Yeah, but I think this is the world that food production will increasingly get more automated. We'll have I've been to baristas now where the barista is entirely automated, and I saw no human. So this is going to become more frequent over the next few years. I think education will change a lot. What you expect to learn in school, what you expect to walk away with as a skill set. The world's ablaze with subscription models. I think education could actually become a subscription model where you've got partners who are working with you, coaches, professors, dons, who are, you choose your tier, you choose your specialties, and you've now got a lifelong learning kind of environment. I don't know. Those are the kinds of things that I see coming over the horizon soon.
Wow. Fascinating. Fascinating. This has been wonderful to have this conversation. I mean, We could probably go on for another hour or two talking about this because, again, I think it's so relevant. But thank you for being here. Thank you for having this discussion. It's neat to hear all the things that are coming down and to hear that the government is looking at some of these things and studying them, maybe not as quickly as we would like, but that they are looking at that. That's important. I like to end every episode with my guests by asking some questions. These were inspired by James Lipton, host of Inside the Actor's Studio, and it's based on the Proust questionnaire. So, Dewey, I know you have seen these, and we're just going to go kind of rapid fire with them. You can take as long as you want, as little as you want, but we're just going to go through them. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. What motivates you?
I get excited when I'm working on interesting problems that make a difference in the lives of others. I'm really energized by working on challenges that no one knows how to solve that have real human impact.
Yeah. What discourages you?
Sabotage.
Mm.
Intentional, those intentional efforts that, slow progress based on self-interest. I don't know if have you ever seen the CIA's Simple Sabotage Field Manual?
No, I haven't. No.
It's really quite interesting to read. It was actually originally published by the OSS, and they have a field manual of how to be a saboteur in an organization. They say make endless committee referrals, demand written orders for obvious decisions, write detailed instructions, haggling over precise word usage, advocating that we need to be cautious about this. We need to be reasonable to avoid being hasty. So this is a guide to how to subvert efforts. And it's often done because people are trying to stop progress because they have a self-interest in things not changing. And it drives me nuts. But it's a incredible manual to see. It's in its declassified form. It's a good read.
I'll have to look that up on Audible and see if I can get that as an audiobook. See if put that on my wish list. What is one word that describes you at your best?
Curious, for sure.
One word that describes you at your worst?
Distracted.
Other than family or work, what gives you purpose?
I think it's really building community that supports each other. And this is often, but not always, in faith contexts, but it's also just everywhere I am. Creating spaces where people can grow, develop. It's just really, really, really meaningful.
What guilty pleasure brings you joy?
Dark chocolate, maybe 60 to 90%. But more seriously, I think the other one is Chinese science fiction. I am over the moon for a good science fiction piece written by Chinese people with that background. It's just so much fun.
Learning something about you right here, right now. How do you celebrate after a win?
Taco Bell. Well, no, Taco Bell really is one of my favorite ways to celebrate a win. But also, just figuring out how to. This is me. I celebrate wins by figuring out what I did wrong, so I can do it better next time. It's kind of a downer, but that's generally what I find my brain doing.
How do you bounce back after a loss?
Quickly.
I like that.
And also, remembering the grace that I've experienced and shared with others is a really powerful way to bounce back.
Yeah. Who was the last person you expressed gratitude towards?
Joanna, my wife. She edited my LinkedIn post this morning, and it made it way better.
That's great. If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
This is an interesting question. I think stop obsessing about yourself and your thoughts. Look at other people. Don't be a selfish person. 2, get help when you get stuck. Don't try to figure out everything alone. And 3, find and marry Joanna, now my wife, as soon as possible and be super nice to her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Dewey, thank you again. This has been fantastic. I loved hearing your insight. It's always so incredibly informative and informational to talk to you, and fun as well. I mean, it's not just all about the learning, but I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us. And, trust me, in a year or two, we're going to come back to this episode and we're going to see how many of your predictions came true. Okay. So we'll do a follow up at that point, right?
Yeah, no, I love eating crow. It's one of my favorite meals.
No, thank you again for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Chris.
Well, that is our show today. Thank you so much for being here with Dewey and myself for this conversation. Check out the show notes. We will put links to how you can connect with Dewey, how you can follow along with his career, that brand new LinkedIn page that he has. We'll start with that, but you can find those at holisticproductivity.com, and we'll have all the show notes there. Make sure that you are subscribed on your favorite podcast platform so that you get all of the new shows as soon as they come out. We're also on YouTube as well. You can watch the show there. Just like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is on your platform, make sure that you're doing that. Be sure to follow at Wholistic Productivity on all of the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, Substack, YouTube. Again, just lots of great productivity tips, motivation for you as you are on your goal seeking journey. So again, make sure you're doing that. And we're just so grateful that you took this time to be here with us for this show. As always, my goal for the podcast is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. So thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time.